No more.
Okay, let
No
me.
more. No more blue collar, blue material that only we can get away with when speaking. We should go live one of these days and
We
let
should.
them. We'll make it. You have to pay to hear us how we really talk. We
Maybe if we're ever in the same room, like you come to town, I go to your town, we should definitely
right.
do like live and.
We should have yellow and red cards ready for. We'll have our friends be like, no, we can't say that, and then
Oh, our
we can't.
friends censor us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
that's a
they would
bad idea.
never. They would never censor us.
Yeah.
That's hysterical. That would be. Yeah, we have to censor them.
Mhm.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. We're the voice of reason. So no,
And
that's
we're still fucking
and
maniacs.
that says a lot. Yeah.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Theory of Conspiracy. My name is Michael, and as always, I'm joined with Roll. And today we're going to be talking about a conspiracy that you may know about from a small little show called Stranger Things. Okay, the show Stranger Things actually was created based off a real conspiracy. So I thought we would share that. The Hawkins National Laboratory in the show Stranger Things is based off an actual place, the story at least, a military base called Camp Hero in Montauk, Long Island, New York. So this is the Montauk conspiracy theory, and we're going to come into this and talk a little bit about it. But as always, I tried to put my best foot forward and stump Rolando, but he is a wealth of knowledge and is completely. I thought I was coming in with some new stuff, and he's just like, "Hey, did you talk about the Jesus part of the Montauk Project?" I'm like, "What are you even talking about? I have no idea what this guy is talking about." So we're gonna expound on my list as we move forward. Maybe he can add some stuff to the list that falls in with that. So that being said, Rolando, how are you doing? And would you like to talk about some current events that are happening in the conspiracy world right now? We are recording July 25th, 2023, and there might be some big news tomorrow. So Rolando, without further ado, go for it, brother.
Yeah. So the Montauk Project, very interested to go over. When you tell me you want to cover it, I'm like, wow, you ready for this? Because this one is insane, and it goes all over the place because it deals with time travel, so it goes everywhere. As far as current events, before we talk about the past and the future via Montauk technology, we talk about the now. Yeah, there's apparently some disclosure stuff. I mean, I don't know if it's anything big. I mean, you seem to think that it's something big, but to me, it's just a bunch of congressmen saying we're tired of the cover up, but nothing's really going to happen. But what do you know about this?
So so my understanding is that people have fallen out. They've had hearings in the past, actually this past summer and spring of 2023. And every time that they bring up national security people or military people, it's that's classified. That's we can't talk about that, or no, or we can't disclose that information. And that's the same old rigmarole, if you will. Apparently, is this hearing is going to be a little bit more, I think, open when it comes to allowing people to tell their stories because of the declassified information. So yeah, it's redacted in the thing, but we're going to get, from what I understand, firsthand testimony about the I always call them UFOs, but what are they called?
UAP?
The UAP, the rebranding of the UFO, the UAPs. So and possibly some alien stuff as well, encounters and stuff like that. So I'm excited to see what happens. I'm optimistic to see, if it's anything new. More than likely, July 26th. We'll see. Who knows? By the
Yeah.
time this airs, it might be a whole new world. We'll
I don't know. I mean, we've seen like nuclear physicists and people who've talked about UFOs have disarmed, nuclear bombs and things like that. Like they shut down whole plants. So I don't know if there's going to be any. I mean, there may be cool stories, but to see the government do something different, I mean, I think. I don't know. I mean, maybe
how is it going to change our day to day? How's it
Yeah.
going to change?
Are they really gonna, after 70 years of cover up, is it really gonna change anything? Or are they gonna, if anything, I could see if they're ever like, yeah, there's something going on, they're gonna play like this is some new thing. We're very afraid. We think they're here to harm us, so let's up the defense budget by quadrillions, even though, if they wanted to destroy us, they probably could do it in like a snap of a Thanos finger, but
Yeah, no, I hear that, and that gets into Project Bluebeam and all that stuff, which we still
Right.
have yet to.
Yeah.
Maybe we start talking about Project Bluebeam as it starts heating up. If there's anything that's crazy that comes up,
Right. Like false flag alien invasions. But according to the Montauk Project, there is a lot of technology that
yeah, that was
sort
the
of
one
puts us
thing.
ahead of where we supposedly are, and it has to deal with.
It's like the northeast coasts, Area 51. I found out. You know what I mean? And I was just like, that's freaking crazy.
It is, and it ties into everything. We talked about, Tartaria kind of being a Swiss Army knife of conspiracy theories. I would argue maybe Montauk is that. I don't know how you out Swiss Army knife a Swiss Army knife. It's the air fryer of conspiracy theories. I'll just say that then.
You can make breakfast, lunch, and dinner in that
Yeah, you
motherfucker.
can yep, you can fry, you can grill. It's a ninja.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
it ties in MK Ultra. It ties in aliens and recovered technology and reverse engineering, time travel. You alluded to Jesus. There's a Jesus thing in there.
Well, I didn't. You alluded to it before the show. I'm interested to see what it is.
Oh,
So
yeah.
let's go.
I was like, get into the weird stuff. Talk about the weird stuff.
Let's get weird. Let's go over the basics first. Let's just go
Yeah,
over
let's
what
go
it
from the
what it.
beginning ish.
Yeah. So the Montauk Camp Hero, all of this basically happened between the 1970s and the 1980s, and there's a couple different conspiracies. As always,
Well,
conspiracy
yeah,
theorists
because you
can't
could
agree on one or the other.
right,
But
because
yeah,
you could say it's even because the guys who are pushing it, the Al Bialik and Duncan Cameron and Preston
I got
Nichols.
Preston Nichols, Alfred Bielik.
So they tie it to the Philadelphia experiment, so that can go back to the
That's in my
40s
list.
even.
That's
Yeah,
in my
so
list.
it goes. So the Montauk Project, yeah, is in that 70s, 80s era, but and then there's a time wormhole that is opened up. It's insane. Well, yeah, let's go.
All right, so and you can add on to it. Number one, okay, different conspiracies that surround this camp. The first being experiments. Okay, so this is getting into like the MK Ultra stuff. This is getting into time travel. This is getting into mind control. This is getting into interdimensional travel. Suspect Zero stuff. If you've ever seen that movie where it's like remote viewing.
Yeah.
Men that stare at goats stuff, with the Ewan McGregor movie that was based off actual events as well. We should do an episode on that book because that took place during the Second Gulf War.
That same thing ties into child trafficking and human trafficking and things like that.
Yes, it does.
Because these guys are alleged that whereas the MK Ultra was sort of done on adults and inmates and soldiers, things like that. A lot of these guys are tying it into the homeless population, children who've gone missing, runaways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, kids of drug addicts. There's an element of the MK Ultra to the next level where it actually gets into like a lot of sexual torture type stuff in order to break them in, which you can almost tie into like the whole satanic panic stuff. But it's it gets heavy with that stuff in this story here.
So, I mean, yeah, that's basically it. I mean, that's one of the theories. All right. And all happened in between and that's what I'm saying. All of those happened in between the 1970s and 1980s. And some would say that the upper levels of the base that are closed down to the public and looks abandoned, they're still happening underground. That's one of the theories. All this mind control stuff, all this time travel stuff, all the different experiments. It's like a catch-all for all the experiments. There's claims that there are large structures underground, like I had mentioned previously, that aren't on the official map of that. And there are people that testify up and down and say up and down that that's a thing. And the experiments that were done, like we said, on young people, possible runaways, and that basically sums up that. Do you want to add anything to that conspiracy? If anything that you heard about it?
Do you want to kind of take it from maybe the Philadelphia experiment and take us through a conspiracy history of time?
Yeah, we can definitely do that. And I guess that ties into the second one too with the nuclear stuff as well, because I think the Philadelphia experiment, it was like a nuclear reaction that created a wormhole or something like that. So, but yeah, go for it. Let's just get into the Philadelphia experiment. That one was kind of lame. It was just basically the there's a underground where the bunkers, they say the labyrinth of bunkers, they buried a nuclear reactor, and that one was one of the conspiracies that are there. Next one,
What?
yeah,
Oh,
that's what
okay,
they say.
okay. I thought you were saying that was a Philadelphia experiment. I'm like,
No, no, no,
yeah,
no, no, no.
okay,
That's
okay,
just that's the next
okay.
one. The
Gotcha,
next
gotcha.
one is number 3 is the Philadelphia experiment and how that ties in to said things. But like I think there's claims that there was like the 1980s B movie, the Philadelphia experiment, and you go ahead. You know a lot more about this Philadelphia experiment and the connections that are made to the Montauk.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think I was a young insomniac looking for weird stuff on TV, and I think it may have been an episode of In Search of with Leonard Nimoy, I want to say, and it was a really well done episode where I was like, "Wow, what is this?" Um, so
Yeah, I saw the same story. I'm sorry, before you get into it, I saw the same
yeah,
story, but on Unsolved Mysteries.
unless it was Unsolved Mysteries, I don't know,
Yeah,
but it's
maybe
yeah,
both.
maybe. So supposedly there was an experiment done in the 40s, and people tie Nikola Tesla technology and Einstein to it, where they were it was tied into Project Rainbow, where they were trying to make ships invisible on radar. They put on some technology on this USS Eldridge, and it was done in a Philadelphia naval shipyard in 43. When they switched everything on, it did disappear off radar, but there was like a green haze that enveloped the ship. It was like smoke, and then the ship just disappeared. And it was gone for, I don't know, several seconds or several minutes there. Finally reappeared. People rushed the ship to find out what happened. Some of the people on the ship were gone. They just disappeared. Some of them were sort of like incorporeal, like they were here but not here, almost like ghosts. And some people merged into the ship where they were, their arms are stuck in the walls, half man, half ship now, and they're just merged with it. And some of them were just crazy. What they later found out was it didn't just turn invisible, allegedly, that it had actually teleported to a different shipyard in, I forgot where, but somewhere in another state, where they had alleged that they saw the ship appear, and they had actually created teleportation technology. This technology is what becomes, the offshoot of the Montauk. But what's weird, and this is one of the weird things, is that there was a Philadelphia experiment movie done in the 80s with Nancy, what's her name from RoboCop. The one of the guys, I forgot, it was Al Bielek or the other guy, but
It was Al Bielek. Yeah.
yeah. So he alleged that he worked on it, but that while watching the movie one late night, this reawakened the memories where it was like, hey, this actually happened, and I was one of the guys along with my brother who jumped off the ship. And he alleges that they jumped off during the whole haze thing, and they ended up traveling through time and opening up a wormhole. This technology is what sort of led to this Montauk Project years later, and allegedly like a weird wormhole opened in the 40s and then the 80s with the Montauk Project and the Montauk chair, and just insane. So that's the Philadelphia experiment a little bit. Where do we want to go from here?
So yeah, so I had the same story. That was the thing I wanted to talk about with the Philadelphia. I think if we go into maybe portals, if you were talking about different portals and into another dimension, right? And this is more what really kind of cements, the Stranger Things. So I'm going to read a passage because I don't like to do this, but I like to make my own, things. But I think this is just so involved that I just need to read it aloud. So here we go. In Stranger Things, the secretive Hawkins lab is backed by the U.S. Department of Energy. In real life, the Brookhaven National Laboratory, about 60 miles away from the Montauk base, is run by the U.S. Department of Energy. Both are home to an interdimensional portal vortex, or as Stranger Things crew refers to it, the gate, into the different dimensions, reports of Long Island Press. All right, so this is from Long Island Press. The coincidences don't stop there. According to the newspaper, they're both steeped in mystery. They are both off limits to the public and well protected against trespassers. They both feature mind-blowing facilities and equipment that are literally rewriting everything the scientific community understands about cosmic matter, the creation of the universe, and nanoparticles. So that's like Ant-Man shit for y'all. Time, space, and so much more. We can only begin to comprehend it all. In the 1960s, the equipment from the Brookhaven was moved to Camp Hero and installed in an underground bunker. According to the conspiracy theorists, Camp Hero may have been closed above ground, but everything underground remains to be open, and the Air Force is still using it to this day. And that's that's basically the concept for Stranger Things. You know what I mean? And that's a conspiracy that they just took that particular portion of the conspiracy and went into it. So
Yeah, with
portals
Stranger
into other dimensions and stuff like that, portals into wormholes into space and time, stuff like that. So that's where
in
we're at.
the like seven, just the kids that were psychics, like that's all part of. They were called the Montauk Boys. So interesting with the Stranger Things is that it was actually in the original pitch. It was called Montauk.
Yeah, I
Before the name
knew that.
Stranger Things.
Mhm.
But because there was already a movie created based off the story, they decided to call it Stranger Things. But yes, with the Montauk Project. So Al Bielek, Duncan Cameron, they alleged that they were part of. They said that there was for one, it was funded by Nazi gold. They say Operation Paperclip was part of this. They said later on that it ties in everything, right? The American government is tied into drug trafficking and all of that, and that's how they fund some of their Black Project operations here. They allege that
Project Snowfall. So if there's nothing, if there's nothing to stop you from being arrested to selling drugs, why not make a mint and use that as dark money? Is that conspiracy, correct?
Yeah. So
Okay.
tied into that, or just the flow of drugs. You tax it on one side, and then you can tax it on the other side here with people's stuff getting
You can claim
confiscated.
it. Yeah, you can
confiscated, or just people like all the people who are in jail right now in the prison industry. That's basically slavery and pretty cheap labor there. So if you are making money on both sides, and then you can create enough flesh bodies to house your jail cells, and maybe a good industry if that's what's really happening. All right. So with these guys, so they said that there's a component of the Aryan that they were looking for, like white boys, I guess, and that was made up of these Montauk boys. That some of them were kids off the street. Some of the numbers are highly inflated, where they say there was like hundreds of thousands of people involved with missing children who were part of this, somewhere in the millions. But that there's, I guess, a lot of experiments being done. Not all of them make it, but some of them become that 7 where they have psychic powers. And there was the Montauk chair where they were able to harness that, and that creates that portal technology, and that they were able to use this to not only travel through time, but to travel to other planets as well. And that's where, if it wasn't weird already, it gets pretty weird.
So this is the point when we were doing our pre-production stuff where I'm just like, oh shit, I didn't even go half as far as he did. So let's hear it.
Yeah, well, it's so he alleges that they found out that they can send themselves through thinking about it, through harnessing it. Preston Nichols or Al Bielek, or who was I think it was Preston, who was the strong psychic, that he can send people back through time. That they just started messing with time. Apparently, they sounded like a treehouse of horror episode where they would just say, "Hey, let's help the other guys win." And they said that they changed the Civil War outcome so that the other guys won. But who were the other guys? Did they mean that the South won and the North won in their history, or did the North win and then they helped the South win and then they undid that? I don't know, but they said they.
So they sound like just little rascals that are traveling through time, just fucking with shit.
Yeah, it sounded like that. Yeah, just Homer just stepping on the bugs and creating all sorts of butterfly effects. And then let's do this now. But it sounded just like that. They went to, I guess, see Jesus. They went to go witness Jesus's crucifixion. He also said that there was a component of belief with that if you didn't really believe in Jesus, that you saw nothing. But if you believed in Jesus, then you saw the crucifixion, and that they were there to get his blood, and they actually helped kill him for whatever reason. And later,
So they're getting
when
into blood magic now and stuff like that.
something like that, and later on, they ran into Jesus on Mars at an underground pyramid because there's underground pyramids on Mars, and Jesus was there. And I don't
Jesus just chilling in Mars, huh?
It just yeah, he was just saying something about the blood. I don't know. It was wild where I'm like, I don't even know what's
Yeah.
going
So like
on.
when Jesus, I can only imagine Jesus like comes up to these Montauk boys and he's like, "Hey man, I know this had to happen. My dad told me, but did you really have to steal my blood? Like, is that the conversation that they had on Mars? Like, what is what?
They said he gave it to them willingly.
Okay.
What was that? Like, hey, I got a nice leak over here. Go just put a cop. Is that too far? I don't know.
No, it's too far.
I mean, you couldn't like
I mean-
willingly like
I
here.
mean-
Let me hand it to you because you're
because I
that's
mean, what
defeats the
hands are
purpose
you?
of crucifixion.
What hands are you going to use?
I'm tied up at the moment,
I'm nailed down right now. I can't help it.
and that's where that came from. They came back, started using that. He was
That expression from
yeah.
Okay.
So
We might need to edit that one, but no, who knows?
who knows? Maybe not.
Leave it in. Let me make that decision.
I feel like they're letting there's a lot of Jesus stuff that slips by. It's not quite. It's
Right. No, that's
what it was.
yeah. We joke because the Montauk boys sound like they're full of shit. But
So there's
You know,
a lot of.
I got to ask you
yeah.
a question. Though. What do you
Uh-huh.
think Jesus would do if he heard us talking our shit right now?
I don't know if it was.
You know
talking.
those little bracelets. Like what would Jesus
What
do?
would Jesus do?
Yeah.
Hopefully, get a crack out of it.
I think he would. I think he would laugh.
It's
I'd
like-
be like, he's like, hey man, I did this for you, motherfucker.
That's why we do the video with that, because sometimes you need to see the expressions of what we're acting out to go along with what we're saying, because you just don't get the full
YouTube
experience.
is coming up here
Yeah.
shortly.
Like, oh, okay.
Okay.
I mean, we weren't making fun of him. We
No,
were just
we're not.
like,
No,
he's
I'm
like,
not.
he's
No.
like, how do you get Jesus' blood if
It's
he's
a-
on the crucifix?
It's a catch-22. You're not supposed to make fun of it, but he did it for us. But you can't say anything about it. Like he's on Mars, guys. He's in an underground pyramid on Mars. Just go. Let's just go with it here.
Yeah, and if anyone's gonna forgive you, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it might be
Jesus.
him. I think it might be him. Shit.
So there's a lot of wild things with this, and probably the wildest thing to me, and this on an earlier episode we talked about. I think it was like called the 20 and Back space program, where they're talking about how they're chilling with aliens, they're going to other planets, and then they're like age regress and sent back to their old bodies like nothing ever happened. And I'm like, okay, that's the thing that is hard for me to get behind. That happens in this story. So we're talking about Nazi gold and Jesus on Mars and all that. But the Al Bialik, he says he was Ed Cameron previously, and that his brother was the other Cameron, Duncan Cameron, that they both jumped overboard. And that he, sometime between the 40s and whatnot, and now, that he was able to jump into the body of Al Bialik and age regressed and got his memories. So even though it wasn't him physically that was there, it was him in another body. And it's like, man, I was with you even with the Jesus on Mars stuff, and now you got this on, and that's hard.
No,
That's hard.
wild.
That's a hard one, but maybe
that's a really hard concept for me to understand as well. But
is that because of sci-fi
physicists
movies?
argue that time isn't linear, right? So if that's the case, could you age regress in just your mind's eye?
It could be. I was thinking maybe it's like a sci-fi movie. Like we've been so desensitized with aliens and time travel and all of that. So when we see that, we're like, okay, and supposedly happening, but then we haven't seen many age regression movies where I was sent into, well, I guess Quantum Leap, but I don't know. It just seems like that's like the wild thing where I'm like, man, I can't get behind that. So these guys, the Al Bialik and Duncan Cameron, Preston Nichols, they sort of joined up somewhere along up on the UFO circles and started combining their stories of the Philadelphia experiment and Montauk Project. And there's some other people who have alleged that they've been part of that with the whole Camp Hero, that some people allege that there's just something weird going on there, that there's, at the very least, you get a creepy vibe when you're traveling around because it seems to be like a military base where
Right.
it's
But it's like
on.
shuttered, right?
Yeah, it's shuttered and it's still blocked off where you can't go there. But then there's
But
a
there's a bunch of people that do go there and
yeah,
sneak in.
it's a yeah. I mean, there's a park there and it's off the coast, and people do sneak in there, do the YouTube videos, and but there's other people who build on that where they're not just the same two or three guys where they say, hey, I was part of that too, I was a runaway, I don't know about the alien stuff, but definitely all the mind control and torture stuff was happening there. So there's some of that, whether it's
Mhm.
all just craziness or something is happening there. There's just some interesting
So
stuff with
yeah,
this.
and there's different rules of thumb on this as well. Is that like, is it, one theory is it's still open and it's just shuttered as like a false flag kind of deal, and the other one is that it's completely closed down. But let's bring it full circle back to aliens. Okay,
Yeah.
the Camp Hero was officially shut down in 1981, but hordes of people, alien believers flock to it among, the others that, try to get in with the Montauk stuff. But there's a huge alien following when it comes to this. And they say that the tunnels underground are like labyrinths, and that it's like the Area 51 of the Northeast, like I had mentioned before. And the conspiracy theorists still say that it's controlled by the Air Force and still has UAPs or UFOs, and living aliens down, some, and then even that splits, and they say some say it's a captive thing for the aliens, and others say that they work together with the Air Force.
Yeah, or
So,
some that we actually work for the aliens.
right, exactly.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
that's something called DUM, and by that I mean Deep Underground Military Base. It's an
Yeah.
actual acronym.
Okay.
So there's alleged that there's these DUMs all over the country there that it may tie into something Tartarian or something, to floods, that there are indeed underground, that there's an underground tunnel system
The
that already
Nephilim as
existed.
well
The
is tied
Nephilim.
into
Yeah.
the dumb. I've heard the dumb stuff, and that sounds funny when you say it, but
Yeah.
this is pretty dumb. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
This is dumb. Deep
No,
underground
yeah, deep
military
underground
base,
military
sucker.
bases, really tall ceilings, because the Nephilim also are doing that to, that was our previous episode, that they work alongside and help with ancient technologies, if
Yeah,
you will.
it's an idea. Native Americans, that during one of the great cataclysms, they fled underground. I mean, even like every major city, there's something underneath your feet, people. If you ask any historian, they'll say, "Oh, this was made by the Capone and the gangsters for
Yeah.
prohibition," but it's always kind of weird. Like, well, there was a
Well,
city that was
there's
already there.
there's
How
an
did they just go?
entrance. There's an entrance to it in my old childhood home. We can
Yeah.
get down under. Yeah, we can go spelunking if you want.
Oh,
They said it was a still, and they would run booze through my house, but went back in the 20s. But you know, Tartaria, all that
it
stuff. Why do
seems
we have
very.
basement? Why do we have basements in Chicago, bro?
Yeah, it's wow, it's just very extensive. It's like, okay, I mean prohibition, but how would they? Could we do that now? Could we just start building? But so it's alleged that there's these sort of infrastructure that was
Sure.
there, and that the government has created these DUMBs, and that the deeper you go, the more sinister it gets with the reverse engineering, and even greater than allegedly what happens at Area 51, where there's hybrids and the aliens that are just walking around freely and stuff, and different, just like the Men in Black movies or something. Um, but yeah,
I
where
mean,
we go.
this is wild. I mean, this is wild stuff. The whole Jesus thing was kind of mind-boggling to me. That was, I was
With
like,
the Philadelphia experiment, supposedly during the um, teleportation, that there were two flying saucers came into scope there and actually kind of got teleported with them. That um, they were either witnessing it or their interference caused that hole to open. But yeah, this is all tied to reverse engineering. So this idea is very much of the we're way more advanced than what we know versus the Whereas there's other ideas like, oh, we're not even advanced enough to get to the moon, and that was all fake. These guys are like, nah, we went to Mars in like the 60s, bro. We went to see Jesus in like the 70s. Jesus came back in the 80s. We went to Mars, Holmes. So it's very much like we're super advanced. There's a lot of sci-fi stuff happening.
So what are the ramifications of that? If that's the working theory that that's what we are, is that like the masses are just dumbed down to an extent that we have no understanding of that what is actually going on in our world? Is that
that if there's that technology there that we're so in the dark about, then perhaps, yeah. I mean, there's even an idea, and I've seen the Philadelphia Experiment movies, and I remember the sequel.
It's so bad, it's so good. Yeah,
The first one I don't remember as much, but the sequel I remember. It was with the stealth bomber, I don't know, teleporting or something, but the Nazis took over in that alternate history world. So
Space
there's
Nazis, bro.
Yeah, so there's this idea, right? Like, who actually won World War II? So if you look at the experiments that were done in the concentration camps that were still done here with MK Ultra and allegedly this Project Paperclip, all the scientists and people coming over and taking high-ranking positions in things like NASA and what became the CIA, and political families as well. The technology, the Nazi gold, which was allegedly just kind of taken from the Jewish people and just people of different countries that they ransacked and things like that. So it may beg the question, who actually won? Maybe I gotta say bad guys, because I think everything's kind of not really black or white anymore. I don't think there's not really.
You're after our Tartarian episode. You've
turned Tartarian.
You found your roots. You are Tartarian.
I did the 20. I did the 40 in me, actually, which is like twice as good as 20 in me. And they're like, you're 100% Tartarian, baby.
Is that what they said?
Like,
yeah. Like, hey man, you can shoot lightning bolts out of your ass. When you and our friend were telling me about how you're both Tartarian, I was loving it. I'm still a skeptic. We're gonna actually have another show about Tartarian, and
we are.
We're gonna have a someone that's a cartographer and does not cartographer, but has an interest in maps, studies maps, and he does what's that called when you survey. Well, so he's a surveyor, so he knows how that stuff works. So we'll just tease that one, but we have to nail him down for a day. But he's a Tartarian as well. He loves that. Yeah, he loves that stuff. So
on that episode, I don't think I was firmly planted into the rabbit hole quite yet. Now I'm like, I think I live here.
I need to change. I have to update my address.
My mail forwarded there. Yeah. So it's tied to everything. So the Operation High Jump, I think we may have mentioned it on some Space Nazi episodes where there was a big expedition gone to Antarctica, and then they allegedly encountered UFOs. But it begs the question, did we somehow...
Well, not just UFOs. They some say that they found a whole other civilization that is still active, and now it's just like it gets deep with that too. But anyway, sorry to cut you off there.
No, but it just ties into did somewhere down the line, did the timeline shift to where all of these experiments did happen, and is it under the control of the Nazis, which actually may have won? I mean, we're dealing with like perception and alternate history and things like that. Like
that's so wild and just so obscure in my mind, But there are other conspiracies that I don't really buy into, that Trump is a time traveler.
Oh,
and then his uncle had all of the had access to all of Nikola Tesla's copyrights and stuff like that. So they actually know how to
there's something that
there's travel.
There's some book series about Baron Trump time traveling, and I don't know when these books came out. I guess in the late 1800s. So I guess
so right after they met with Jesus on Mars, they went to the 1800s just to write a book. Is that what's
something? Well, I don't know if this is tied to it, but it's just just some ideas that people have jumped on that that bandwagon with Barron Trump, because that's Trump's son, right? Barron Trump.
Yeah. Hmm.
But I guess there is some underground civilizations and things like that. I don't know. I guess we'll have to revisit the
That gets
whole.
into Q territory as well. Which
Yeah,
I've definitely listened to because it's just mind-boggling to me. But
yeah.
anyway,
We'll have to do a Trump. Yeah.
yeah.
So the Montauk Project. So eventually, this is how it came to end. So we're dealing with manifestation from this chair. There's this chair there on the Montauk base itself. There's a radio tower that's kind of iconic, I guess, and people allege
Yeah.
that.
It was built in the 1940s or something like that, and it's the Sage radar tower, and it basically would interfere with signals. It was like 425 megahertz, and some say it was a mind control tool as well. Some conspiracy theorists say that that's what it is too.
Yeah, so it does. Yeah, so
And
it
even
does,
more,
does
yeah,
everything. Yeah, mind control. It's they live, but it's also it took this chair and amplified, the psychic brain. It was Cerebro, if you're an X-Men fan, basically. So
Mhm.
so allegedly, how this started coming to an end, they started doing all these crazy things in time, changing history, going back and forth, just messing with it. There were two ideas there. One, or I guess I just say it's one idea. There's this idea that they started traveling further and further into the future, and they found that the furthest they can travel into the future was the year 6037.
Okay,
See,
why do they say that?
they just couldn't travel past it. They were like, do you want to go to year 5000? Yep. And they were able to go 5500. They do it. 6000. Yep. 6037. They could do it. 6038. Nope. It
plateaus right there.
It's like an amp that only goes up to 11. You can't go up to 12.
You can't
only 11. But I don't know.
Nice Spinal Tap reference.
Yeah,
this one goes to 11.
Yeah. But why don't you just make 10 the highest?
Well, this one's 11.
11.
This one's 11. This one's 11. This is 11's higher than 10.
Yeah. We got Stonehenge in that one too. Oh my God, this conspiracy theories.
No, it's all coming together. It's all coming together.
But that's as far as they can go. I guess that's when the time ends, 6037. So we have, if 4,000 years left.
Yeah, 4,000 years. I mean, if does it really end though? That gets into time theory. I love time theory. If something expands to its maximum point, it just the automatic reaction to that is that it implodes on itself. Yeah. So then we're just going to be talking backwards in this podcast, and
basically
like when you're
chicken made
yeah,
chicken made the egg, you kill your grandfather.
Right.
But the other thing with this future is they went to this future place. They were in some city, and everything was gone except there was this golden horse statue, this Mustang that was still there, that they could not figure out. They didn't know what the significance of, or that this was the only thing standing.
Well, I can tell you what the significance is. Do you want to know?
Denver.
It was our high school mascot, bro.
Oh, okay.
It was an altar made to us.
Well, it's also the mascot for the Denver International Airport, which should be an episode there. So Denver International Airport also has DUMBs. Apparently, it was made way bigger than it needs to be. That there's underground installations, and there's a lot of conspiracy theorists who allege that there's more going on to it there. But I guess they played into it, and they're like, yeah, totally are. So there's a lot of artwork, basically stating that. But there's this freaky ass horse that's, I guess, a sort of dead ringer for what this looks like. It like, you can look up the Denver International Airport Mustang, and it's this horse with red eyes standing up on its feet, and that's the way they allege that it was standing. There's also some freaky paintings done at the Denver International Airport.
We just need to do an episode.
We just need to do an episode. Yeah, there's some weird stuff there. So that's as far as they went. Do you know how he turned into Seven and went all apeshit and shut it down?
How?
Seven is her name, right? It's not like 11. It's 7.
Yes,
okay, I'm getting my 7 and 11s mixed up.
It happens, man. I feel like a Slurpee.
Yeah. So I guess Preston was like, enough of the child trafficking with Nazi gold and mind control and the Jesus and the alternate history. We got to shut this shit down. So he went on the chair and he manifested, because remember, on the chair, whatever you manifest becomes reality. They were able to manifest a big hairy monster that went ape shit in the military base, started tearing everything apart, soldiers and all of that stuff there, which I've never finished Stranger Things, so I don't know if they do that. Yeah, I guess they kind of do, right? Because she's like
Kind
has a
of.
thing with the monster, and she's like, yeah, I don't know, maybe something like
Yeah.
that. So a big type hairy creature, or werewolf or dogman, manifests and shut shit down. Um, which I guess slowed the project down, but didn't quite stop it, because the ideas go on that it still exists deep underground and that it's not really shut off yet. Yeah, so the monster apparently ruined the base here, but what's interesting is that the monster legend came back to Montauk, because in 2008, a photo started hitting the rounds of the internet and social media, making people go crazy. It was something that washed up ashore that they refer to as the Montauk monster. I don't know if have you ever seen that? It's like a
I
weird.
have seen that. Yeah, I
Hmm.
didn't know that the two were related. I didn't know the story about him getting in the chair and channeling that stuff. So I have seen that picture, but I didn't know that it was related to. I knew it was the Montauk Monster, but I thought they were two separate things. I didn't know that this guy created this in the chair.
Well, it may not be that monster. And anytime I've seen the article about the Montauk monster, it's rarely ever connected to Montauk Project. So it's one of those coincidences, right? That there's supposedly a base on Montauk, and there's supposedly monsters being manifested, and then supposedly monsters washing up. It is a weird looking thing. I'm looking at it right now. It looks like it has a beak and all sorts of crazy teeth. Some say that it was just I think it was just they say a pit bull that washed up ashore, but it is a weird looking thing. I don't know if they've ever found the carcass or just got washed back ashore again, but I know there was some hoopla with the monster, a Montauk.
Yeah.
And the other thing with that is that there's another place, maybe this will be a future episode, that's that's right off that coast too, called Plum Island.
Hmm.
And this is the where supposedly, I guess, not just monsters are being created, but supposedly where diseases are created. I mean, it's officially, like a disease research place, but some people
Yeah.
say no, they're not researching it, they're making the damn stuff to kill us.
Yeah. I mean, that right there has got us off of YouTube, but you can see all our other episodes on YouTube if you'd like. Spotify doesn't give a fuck, so we're good when you guys are listening to this here. But my just to get onto that,
That's crazy. The levels of things. You can talk about Jesus bleeding on a time traveler. You could talk about the
yeah, no,
south.
you can't. That's the. No, let's talk about this for a second. So we're not even saying that things are fake or whatever aren't, but you can't tell me that biological weapons aren't being made for the U.S. military and every other military across the world. And that's why can't we talk about that? You know what I mean? Or even if it's not true, right? With certain things, you can't say the C word that ends with Ovid, and all that stuff. And I don't believe that stuff personally. I know some people do, and that's their fucking prerogative. I don't give a shit. You know what I'm saying? But you can't even talk about it. Like that's where it's just like, okay,
Right.
like just let's pull
Or
on the
even
reins here.
or even making mention that someone believes in something like that. Just
Right.
like, oh, we're gonna censor the episode, and now we're gonna get this episode censored just because of that line with the C word and
Hmm.
the Ovid, which
Yeah.
is so weird. With all the stuff we've said, it's like that's someone that's gonna like, yeah, warning before you watch this episode that deals with Nazis, child trafficking, satanic,
Airports, whatever. Yeah.
satanic airports, monsters, manifestations, all of that. They mentioned the C word. So turn back now. But briefly, that wasn't even the crux of anything at all.
Right.
But
No,
it just,
exactly. No, but
yeah,
that's the way it is. But yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, well, is there anything else on Montauk before we wrap up this episode?
Oh man, so it's heavy. I told you there's a lot of stuff with it. Goes all
Yeah.
over the place. So I guess final thoughts. What do we think may have happened or not happened at these places?
So the first conspiracy about experiments, if anything, I believe in that. You know what I'm saying? And it's not. it's not too far fetched for me that the government, does experiments on people, and voluntarily or involuntarily, alike. It's come out that has happened with prisoners and military enlisted people and volunteers and stuff like that. We talk about MK Ultra being declassified, so stuff like that. It's not as far fetched. I don't know, time travel. That's a big one. And now, if in 5 years, if someone comes back and is like, "Oh yeah, we've been time traveling for 7 years," I'm like, why the fuck can't we get this right? If we're we just try and go back and changing shit, and it just like gets fucked up every single time. But yeah, that's kind of where I draw the line, and the whole living a whole life and then getting back into your consciousness and stuff like that. But that being said, man, some of our good friends have smoked salvia and said that they've done the same thing, where they've lived like 30 years within like a 6-minute span, and then come back to that idea of stuff, and then they're like, oh yeah, like I just totally dissolved into this other reality, lived a full life, and now I'm back here. So is that just a trip, or did that happen, or is it like an alternate dimension, or another stage in consciousness? Like, I don't know. I personally don't buy into it, but that's not my place to tell anybody else what to believe.
That reminds me of, I don't dream all the time, but when I do dream, sometimes I get lost in them. And there's been times, if I've ever been late to work, it was because I thought I was in another reality and I was lost in a mystery. And then I realized, damn it, this was a stupid dream. No wonder nothing made sense.
Yeah.
So who knows? I mean, I'm
always going on little adventures trying to figure out Scooby-Doo mysteries in my dreams too. And it's just like, what? Well, you gave me this key, but now it's a brick, and how come the brick doesn't fit in a keyhole? And it's just like what the fuck? And then I'm like, why? You ever had the ones where you wake up and it's a dream, but you're like, I mean, I can solve that, son of a bitch, and you try to go back to bed. I can return to a dream. Can you return to a dream after you've woken up?
I've done a few times when I was when I was younger. I feel like it was stronger, or I only had one time I can remember where I had what is it called when you can control your dream because you recognize it's a dream?
You're lucid dreaming.
Lucid, yeah. So there's only one time I mastered that, and I was like, I can fly, and I jumped and I fell, but then I was like, nah, let's try it again, and I was able to fly.
Good lucid dream philosophy movie is Waking Life. Just to throw it out there. It's
I remember that
good.
animation.
It's fucking good. Yeah, it's really good. But
but with this,
what about you? What about we went off on a tangent about dreams and different realities and shit. But what is your take on this?
It's wild. It has a lot of stuff. Philadelphia Experiment. It ties into a lot of threads that I'm like, cool. I like all this stuff, but a lot of it gets a little wild for me. Like I mentioned with the whole age regression and all of that stuff, where just like, okay, well, it's like when someone's like, oh, I've gotten all this information. Where do you get it from? I channeled it. Like, oh, well, I don't know. I mean, I could channel something, and it doesn't really mean much. Just
right.
But definitely a lot of interesting threads.
Felt real to him though, Rolando. You can't poo-poo on it,
A lot of interesting threads. I mean, it's interesting that it became a successful show. Like I thought this was, something I read about a long time ago and was like, that's just bad shit, but it's pretty interesting. But someone actually was like, yeah, I can do something with this, and they sold it to Netflix. So, I guess I admire their gumption for sticking it out, staying on the UFO circuit until they sold their story. I hope they get paid, the Bilix and all that. Sorry that the government did that to you and age regressed you, but at least you're getting some royalties. I don't know, maybe.
Well, that's the reason why the writer strike's happening, is that Netflix ain't paying shit for royalties. So hopefully anyway, we'll get into
that.
Strike. Union.
I think with the Montauk, and the last things I'll say with it is it seems wild, and then it seems like it's just two crazy old guys talking about it. Then other people are like, hey, I was part of that too, which gets interesting. Or the monster, where it's like, okay, this is just hot air. Then it's like, oh, monster washed up ashore. Oh, interesting. So it seems like You know, New York. I think New York is a hotbed for the weird. No one ever denies that, just for people. But when it comes to the government stuff, it's always like, oh, Southwest, right? But so I guess good for you, Northeast Coast, and
Right.
for all your get some weird conspiracy stuff. But I guess we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll be biting
Well,
our tongues.
the final season of Stranger Things is coming out, so we'll have to watch that and get back to y'all. So, no,
Yeah.
it's regardless of whether the two of us believe in it or buy into it. It's a pretty freaking awesome story, and that's really what this podcast is about. Is just getting those stories out there, having y'all do your research. So, I think that wraps it up, man. And let's have a healthy distrust. And anything else from you, Rolando?
Yeah, I always tell people to stay weird, but if you've seen Jesus on the Mars, maybe be a little less weird. But I don't know.
that one was strange. It's just that was kind of ridiculous. I agree with you. All right, guys, we'll let you go, and you have a good rest of your week. Hopefully the world hasn't changed from this press conference. I'm not much, if I'm being honest with you.
We'll see. Well, peace out, everybody.